I don't know if this person is a good person or a bad person, if they pay their taxes, if they, I don't know what their political affiliation is, and I would be frank with the Finance Committee, I don't have an interest in that.
The floor is all yours.
All right. Good afternoon, committee. Matt Thomas, Chief of Police. So let me get the presentation going for you. The first thing we're going to go over is our the 2025 accomplishments. We had several significant milestones in 2025. I'm going to highlight 4 of those today for you. One of the most impactful accomplishments was we completed our department's first ever independent staffing study. This was an effort that took nearly a year, involved every division, and was made possible by the support of City Council. The goal of the staffing study was to answer a long-standing question by some of you from the community and other city leadership: how many police officers and support staff does APD truly need to serve Aurora effectively? Just to give a brief overview of those findings, the study confirmed that our patrol division, which is our largest division, is appropriately staffed at 150 officers. It identified the need for additional sworn personnel in our specialized units to enhance responsiveness. It also recommended expanding non-sworn professionals to support the department's growing administrative and technological needs. We recently completed our internal review of that report and returned the draft for some minor revisions. Once that is finalized, we will present the report to the mayor's office so that it can now serve as a roadmap for the department and help guide our administration and future administrations. Our second major accomplishment was expanding our services and community engagement initiatives. So the staffing study confirmed that we're on the right track by strengthening our service-based units and specialized assignments. This year, we expanded our school resource officer program. We added a cold case and an internet crimes against children investigator, and introduced 2 social workers to enhance our crisis and mental health response. We also created a dedicated human trafficking investigator to better hold traffickers accountable and support survivors of exploitation. When the community concerns shifted last year from traffic safety to property crimes such as burglaries and thefts, we created a crime reduction team. That team is dedicated to addressing those issues specific to burglaries and thefts. Their targeted approach this year has led to a measurable decrease in property crimes citywide. We also introduced several new community engagement initiatives this year and events, many of which were inspired by our officers. We formed a Special Olympics committee this year to strengthen our fundraising and community outreach efforts. And thanks to our team's dedication this year, we almost doubled our fundraising efforts this year, helping Illinois achieve first in the world for Special Olympics fundraising. Finally, we just recently launched our Senior Safety and Resource Unit. This is a new program that we started in partnership with the members of the Aurora senior community. This unit offers seniors a dedicated point of contact when they are calling into the police department to ask questions, receive crime prevention tips, and participate in meetings focused on safety resources for older adults. The third major accomplishment we listed was the diversity of our workforce. This effort began under Chief Cross, and this year we reached the most diverse staffing levels in APD history. Today, over 35% of our workforce represents diverse backgrounds. Just for context, in 2015, approximately 15% of our officers were Hispanic, and today that number is over 27%. Our most recent hiring group this year brought nearly 75% diversity to the department, demonstrating that our recruiting efforts are working. And likewise, our police cadet program, which is one of our most important hiring pipelines, has achieved nearly 65% diversity. We strengthen our recruitment efforts through partnerships with Spanish language media outlets. We also created the Spanish language Citizens Police Academy and built partnerships with historically black colleges and universities. These efforts continue to build a department that better reflects and serves the diverse Aurora community. The final and most significant accomplishment in 2025 is one we're incredibly proud of. We were recently recognized as one of the safest cities in the United States. Our officers increased traffic enforcement and community engagement. While traffic stops might seem routine, they directly correlate with safer roads. This year, our officers have increased their traffic stops by 18% more than last year. As traffic stops increase, accidents decrease. As DUI arrests increase, serious and sometimes fatal accidents decrease. And we've increased our DUI arrests by 36% this year. We also see a strong connection between our proactive policing and reductions in violent crime. As our traffic stops go up, gun seizures go up. As gun seizures go up, violent crime goes down. And this year, our gun seizures are up over 100% this year. We've taken more than 200 guns off the street already this year. Also, our curfew enforcement is up 127% this year. So fewer juveniles on the street late at night contribute to safer neighborhoods and better outcomes for our younger people. Also, our directed patrols are up 31% from last year. When we conduct more directed patrols in our neighborhoods, there's increased visibility, which results in a decrease in thefts and burglaries. Let me switch to some crime stats for you. So in 2024, you can see we had 7 people were struck by gunfire, and we had 1 domestic homicide. This is a dramatic improvement from the Aurora of 10 to 20 years ago, when more than 44 people were struck by gunfire with 8 homicides, and 20 years ago, 47 people struck by gunfire with 17 homicides. This year, our crime statistics remain at historic lows. 2 decades ago, we had, in the robbery category, we had averaged 150 robberies per year. This year, we recorded just 34. Burglaries once totaled 1,000 annually. Today, we've cut that figure by more than half. While we work to significantly reduce crime, we can never completely eliminate it. But to sustain the momentum and continue driving crimes to record lows, it's important that we preserve our staffing, our technology, and our critical resources to the best of our financial ability. We're incredibly proud of what we've accomplished together, and this recognition as one of America's safest cities belongs to every officer, support staff member, and every resident who has worked each day to make Aurora safer. At this point, I'm going to share a video that highlights some of these successes. So I think an important takeaway from that report was that Aurora ranked 17th out of 182 major cities across the United States in home and community safety. I'll now switch to our goals for 2026. So while some of the operational and personnel reductions in 2026 are going to present challenges, our foremost responsibility remains unchanged, which is to keep the people of Aurora safe and deliver services that enhance the quality of life. To support this mission, we've established 4 goals for 2026. The first is to continue to prioritize core police services, crime prevention, and a visible presence in neighborhoods. Our commitment is to deploy resources strategically, preserve critical functions and services, and uphold public trust and safety. Our second goal is to retain and develop our workforce. Aurora has traditionally been known as a destination department, attracting and retaining top talent from all over due to our strong support systems like you all, our professional culture, and our high standards. So while our training budget has been reduced, we will ensure our officers and professional staff receive all mandated certifications. We're going to expand in-service training and on-duty training opportunities, and we'll continue building career development pathways to support retention. The city has invested heavily in training our personnel, and we're committed to supporting that investment to develop our workforce. Our third goal is to continue modernizing technology and improve operational efficiency to the best of our financial ability. We have recently selected and began the transition to a new computer-aided dispatch and records management system. This will replace our outdated, underperforming system and will increase efficiency throughout the department. In 2026, that transition will continue as data is migrated into our new system. Settings are going to be customized to our needs, and testing and training will begin on the new system. This will greatly improve our informational sharing efforts and provide greater efficiency in report writing, evidence collection, and 911 dispatching efforts. Our fourth goal for the 2026 budget is to strengthen and further formalize our community feedback systems. Some of you may have seen at your ward meetings, we've recently implemented the QR codes at your ward meetings. This is allowing residents to submit their concerns digitally. These submissions are then documented, routed to the appropriate officer, and then tracked for follow-up and reviewed to identify recurring issues in neighborhoods. The QR code submissions then go into our PS tracker systems, and that creates that accountable workflow and allows supervisors to monitor the progress and ensure residents receive updates. We're also expanding the use of our My90 platform. This was previously used for post-interaction surveys. My90 will soon support pre-arrival messaging for 911 callers. This feature will provide callers with helpful instructions while the officers are en route. For example, on traffic accident calls, drivers might receive a message telling them to pull to the side of the road if their vehicles are drivable, have their license and insurance ready for when the officer arrives. And if you call from your residence, callers might receive just some simple guidance like turning on exterior lights and securing pets in a separate room. This will help prepare the scene, increase the safety for everybody involved, and ensure our responding officers have the information and the environment they need to arrive and assist more efficiently. I'll move to the approved decision packages then for 2026. We have 4 approved decision packages. 2 of these support essential software and equipment renewals for systems and tools we already have in place. The funding source for the Calio equipment is our drug forfeiture money. The third package provides an additional software bundle and licensing to expand our to support our expanded digital forensic unit. We have been using a free trial license since we hired our second forensic investigator a few months ago, and that's about to expire. The fourth decision package establishes a dedicated digital forensic analyst position, which allows our investigator that's currently doing the work to return to full-time criminal casework so the analyst can handle digital evidence analysis and case preparation. Do you guys have any questions specifically about any of the of decision packages or anything I've said so far?
If you would finish your presentation.
Sure.
Then we'll ask questions.
Go back?
If that's okay.
Okay, I'm going to turn
We're
it
here
over.
for a while, yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to ask the chief to work the remote control for me.
There you go.
Steve Stemmet, Deputy Chief of Police. I'm going to dive into the actual budget itself. On this next slide, you can see, if you focus on the last few columns there, the percent change from the 25 to the 26 budget itself. I'd like to just point out a few things on this slide. You'll see on the top row there that represents our salaries and some other financial benefits. That's an increase of 2.11% overall. You're going to see the 2 major increases on here are represented under the 20 accounts for employee benefits. That represents such things as health insurance coverages, pension contributions, workers' compensation, insurance and claims, I believe, and that's increasing 15.07% overall. The next major increase is going to be down in the 40 accounts. That again represents some liability insurance and some other items, and there's an increase in that bucket by 52.36%. And these figures, I'm sure you've all heard Dr. Caputo explain in his professional opinion that those have been historically underfunded, and now these jumps in funding in those categories represent the city bringing those back up to where they feel they should be. Overall, taking into account those 2 huge increases, you'll see at the bottom our overall 2026 budget goes up by roughly 7%, a little over 7%. I should note one important thing, though. In our budget, that 7% increase and that $104 million figure also represents approximately $7.16 million in revenue accounts that are tied to our budget, so it's not actual spending that we're doing that is not tied to revenue that we're generating. So I can switch to the next slide. I've grouped our decrements into 3 basic categories, from the least impactful to the most serious. The bullet points do not represent all of the things being decremented out of our budget that I placed into these groups. Just to summarize, the first couple here, this overtime holiday budget line duplication of $600,000, that was an item that was in our budget for the last few years. It was not spent. That holiday pay and some overtime cost was actually being attributed to our salary line item. So that $600,000 is being totally eliminated from our budget. Some of the other big items in this category, obviously, and I'll get to in a couple more slides, we are going to have a decrease in personnel, a decrease in training, and we feel that and some other measures that we're going to take will help us decrease the amount of money that we spend in fuel as well. The next group, a little bit more painful for us, is going to be the decrease of some general overtime, some training, which are tied together. Historically, for instance, we've done 6 mandatory training sessions per year. Next year, we are going to be cutting that down to 1 mandatory training session, or 8 hours, and that entire 8 hours is going to be spent satisfying unfunded state mandates that we're required to train on. Additionally, in addition to the mandatory training, some of our work group trainings are going to be reduced. Think of such things as our SWAT team training, drone team training, police canine training, just about around the board. We have roughly 30 specialized training groups. We're going to have to decrease some of the training in that category as well, too. A lot of that training is done on overtime, so by decreasing the training, naturally the overtime is going to follow. And then we will have other limitations, too, with the decreased overtime. Currently we're able to do specialized and selective enforcement when we see spikes in burglaries or car burglaries, for instance, or shootings. Some of those police details probably will not be as easy to come by next year. The ammunition line item, that's also tied to that training topic, with less SWAT team training, for instance, less officer training. We're going to go through less ammunition. The next and most serious bucket, this is our decremented personnel. Overall, the police department's losing 35 positions. I split that into 2 categories, representing our sworn positions and our non-sworn professional staff. Out of these positions, I want to note that they include 20 vacancies, which those vacancies are really only vacant because forecasting what was coming ahead, we really ceased our hiring practices for the last 6 months to try to get ahead of it. 13 additional positions will be through attrition. There's going to be 1 layoff, and 1 person took the voluntary reduction in force. In the sworn category, we're losing 9 positions. That's 7 current vacant patrol officer positions, 1 police lieutenant through attrition, and 1 police sergeant through attrition. As we have less officers, obviously, with span of control, we'll have a lesser need for a police sergeant and a lesser need for a police lieutenant. Additionally, next year, through decrements of training and recruiting and hiring, the current lieutenant position that oversees that will not be as needed, so we'll have to incorporate those duties under one of our other police lieutenants. On the non-sworn side, most of those decremented positions, you'll see on the top bullet point there, that's 8 dispatcher vacancies. Historically, we've been understaffed despite our best efforts in telecom. We feel that by decreasing the 8 dispatcher vacancies there in order to save other jobs, that still leaves us approximately 6 or 7 dispatcher positions to hire, fully train, and get released to solo duty next year, and we think that that's an actual hefty goal to even get to that amount. The other major categories is our cadet program being eliminated through attrition. What that means to us is that we have 12 allotted spots. We currently have 1 vacant cadet spot. So we have 11 active police cadets right now. One of those cadets will be able to be hired as a police officer, actually probably next month, and then 4 more will be hired throughout 2026. We just will not backfill those positions once they become hired as police officers. Or if we lose any other ones, whether they change their mind on a career path or they don't complete the program successfully, we won't replace those positions as well. So to sum up those 3 buckets, an approximate decrement amount of $5.4 million and 35 positions are being eliminated from the police department. I also want to explain kind of the history of the negotiations, where we started at and where we are today. When we were first presented with the budget crisis from the mayor's office, 70 positions were being eliminated from the police department. That was not doable, in our opinion. We would not be able to provide the same level of public safety that the chief spoke about, losing that many of our dedicated staff in the police department. Through negotiations, we were able to chop that down to just over 50, and then we continued negotiations, and just yesterday, in fact, with Mr. Caputo, in the witching hour, making more adjustments to our allotted decrements and how many people we'd be able to retain. We were able to eliminate that or limit that to 35 positions, and like I said, most of those are through vacancies. I also want to mention that on the next slide, some additional concessions that we made of approximately $2.6 million. The first one I'll speak to is actually the second bullet point there. As part of our normal budget process, we kind of scrub our budget from one year going into the next, and we were able to reduce approximately $750,000 just looking from one year to the next on items that we felt either we could replace with a better product at a lesser cost, or we just didn't need it at this time anymore because it hasn't been used. We were also able to give back $1.6 million in squad cars for 2026. I'll note that's not coming out of the general fund. That's a SHAPE fund item, but still a savings to the school. Because of the financial concerns as explained to us, we also renegotiated several things. We renegotiated our school resource officer contracts with District 129 and 131 so that the actual school district will pick up more of the cost for the police officer that's assigned to the school for 9 months out of the year. We still have to get caught up with District 204 to do the same. Obviously, we'd be looking for the same sort of agreement from them, as it wouldn't be fair to charge 2 of our school districts one amount and another one a lesser amount. If I could go back to, I believe it was the Group 2 slide. I want to mention at the bottom there a couple of other efforts that we did to try to save jobs ultimately at the police department and save the city money as well. We were at a point where we were going to have to turn off ShotSpotter altogether. That's obviously not ideal, and as many of you have voiced, it's a very valuable product in your areas. It's definitely led to a decrease in crime. ShotSpotter being a great partner of ours, once we brought that concern to them, they were willing to renegotiate our contract, and we were able to save $40,000 off of our price tag for 2026. The same thing with a product called Fusus. Fusus is a common operating picture for a lot of our technologies. Does such things as give officers in our kick center the ability to quick from camera to camera around the city, or even maybe within our schools. If we were to have an active shooter at our school, our kick center and our officers can view real time down some of the hallways of the schools and see where they're very valuable. That's another thing that we were going to have to discontinue. We spoke to Fusus, which is owned by Axon now, and we were able to renegotiate and get a $55,000 savings for next year, and also split that cost between the current year, 2025, and then the last year, 2027, so that we actually have a zero-sum bill for 2026. We were able to find, through some of our current cutbacks and savings for this year, anticipating this problem, we were able to find budget money for 2025 to pay that total for Fusus this year, and then next year not have to pay anything. If I go back to the last slide for the additional concessions, those were just some other things that we were able to eliminate from either the general fund budget or other funds within the city. And one other revenue generating stream that we're currently in the process of doing that hasn't been increased in a long time is our false alarm billing. We feel that will generate more revenue to the city. It is an expense for the police department because for one, we employ one part-time employee that deals with all the alarm billing, but obviously we also have to send police officers out to residents and businesses every time there's a false alarm, and we incur a cost for that, obviously.
Questions?
Okay, sounds like you're finished. Fairly thorough. I know all my colleagues on City Council would love to see this presentation. Just a little housekeeping, make sure if we can get that out before the end of the day, or at least first thing in the morning to Chief Jacobs. Greatly appreciated for disbursement with all the alderpersons. Oh, it's already there? Oh, thank you so much. Man, you guys are way ahead of this stuff. But I really like the way this was presented. I think it helps out with the residents at home that are also watching or maybe following, or maybe will follow after this meeting. So I appreciate that. I know you're ready. So I'm going to open it up to my colleagues, and we will start with Alderman to my left, Keith Larson. Alderman Keith Larson.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a few questions about some line items. You actually answered some of them already, so thanks for that. The first one is under the police budget, line item 42-49. This is under the training budget, education/training for police
Can you give
cadets.
us a page number?
626. It was hiding.
Okay.
Yep, 626 in the budget book. I know there's a revised budget. I believe this is the same in the revised budget. But I see there's $30,000 allocated for tuition for 12 police cadets, and then there's $55,000 decrement for the Explorer program. But the police cadets program has also been decremented. I see 0 positions in there. Is this $30,000 still going to be spent on this?
Sure. I think a portion of it will, because our cadets are being eliminated through attrition.
Right.
So it may not be that full amount, but throughout all of 2026, we're going to have, we'll lose a few, I believe, in April, and then the second group is due to become police officers in December. So primarily for all of 2026, they'll be in college. So I think a good chunk of that will be used. Yes.
Okay, thank you. My next question, if we skip forward to, it looks like page 634, line item 61-24, prisoner care. I see a $3,000 decrement. Could we get a description on what is being decremented here?
So our jail population has decreased. So that's like food and linen, like the cleanings of the linen. Since our jail population has gone down, we saw that we could decrement. These are some of the things, like the deputy chief mentioned. We try to be responsible every year and look at what our spending is, look at the jail population just for that account alone. And we saw a trend of decreasing jail population and saw that we could afford a savings there. So.
Okay, thank you. And one more question, skipping ahead to page 640 under the 911 call center. So looking at the overtime budget, well, it looks like over the past few years it's been pretty high, and we're already over budget for 2025. And it looks like the overtime budget's the same in 2026 while the staff is going down. So I'm guessing that's a little ambitious, or is there a reason that overtime budget is the same? I imagine it's not easy to project exactly how much that'll be, but.
Yeah, we recently entered into an agreement where our lead operators can offer some coverage as well, so that offered us a savings for the overtime. So, appreciate the union working with us on that, because they understood some of the, the challenges we were up against. So.
All right, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to the other side. Alderman Damborero.
Yes. I got a lot of questions, but I'm just going to ask a couple. So the cadet program, my understanding is we started that in like 1971,
Yeah.
continuously.
Yes.
And out of that program, we've had some people rise up through the ranks and even become chief.
Yes, sir.
So my question is, can that program be pared down, to like 50% or 25% to keep it going and not have a break in that tradition? Is that something that
Yeah, I mean,
can be done at
I can
a
take that.
smaller
Okay.
scale?
I think by the concessions that the mayor's office made to do it through attrition, essentially that's what we'll be doing, Alderman. Next year, we have 11 currently with 1 vacancy, and then through the end of 2026, we'll transition 5 additional cadets to police officers. So those 5 with the 1 vacancy, 6, that's 50% of our 12 allotted cadets. We're hoping that, like a lot of these items, training, for instance, I'll use as an example. I don't think anybody in the city wants a lesser trained police department. That's not good for anyone. So I think going into negotiations in our budget for 2027, we'll be at a 50% reduction in our cadets, and hopefully that's something that the city's in a different financial position, and that's something that we'll be looking to bring back and not totally attrit and lose out of our capabilities of the police department.
So we could resume this in 2027 and not
I'm
have a
going to
break in our...
I'm going to make you this promise.
Yeah, me-
We'll make that argument. We'll see what sort of financial positions the city's in at that point, and see what we can do next year.
So we're just ramping down in 26. We're not totally eliminating the cadet program?
By eliminating through attrition, the only way that they're going to be lost through attrition is if they become 21 years old and become a police officer, or if they change their mind and it's not for them. So throughout 2026, at that point, at the end of 2026, we should still have six police cadets working for the police department.
Okay. My other question has to do more with the community in mind, right? So in your presentation, you had some information regarding the crime statistics and how the police department has continued to drive those numbers down. And, you know, a lot of us aldermen go to a lot of meetings, and we get to see the updates on a monthly basis by area, and there's not a lot going on. I can certainly say that for Ward 1. Not a lot to get excited about. You know, sometimes attendance is low because people are happy. They're not concerned about crime. Fortunately, we still get people to come out because they are engaged and want to know what's going on in the neighborhood. So my question is, what do we say to the public with these cuts? What can they expect for 2026? And with these decrements, how will that impact their quality of life, you know, response to calls, the trends that we've been seeing with crime? Is there any way to gauge that? Are there any concerns with these decrements?
So I think, you know, there's two parts to the decrement that that the deputy chief talked about: the personnel and then the technology, equipment, training. You know, all of these cuts we're hoping will be temporary, right? That's what you know, we believe our mission is one of the most important missions for city government and you know, public safety and services. I think what we'll have to do, you know, is we're going to have to slow down the modernizing of our technology. We've been on a really good track. You know, ShotSpotter we talked about, Fuses, some of the technology that's out there right now has really aided us in our situational awareness. It's helped us with our investigative capabilities. We're going to have to just slow that process down next year. I think the staff, you know, we're going to have to share responsibilities and you know, make some workload adjustments with some of the decremented positions, as like a lieutenant and the sergeant and the officers. You know, so there would be a decrease, a reduced capacity for, you know, specializing investigations. Like I mentioned, you know, we did a good job being responsive. You know, many of our positions, you know, over the last few years as we came to city council and asked for more officers, we didn't just throw them in squad cars and send them out there. They were very purpose-driven or demand-driven. You know, what I mean by that is, you know, purpose-driven, we had they brought a lot of value to the police department, the CIU unit. You know, that was a unit that brought a lot of value. We're going to be able to keep that unit. You know, the school resource officers, very purpose-driven. Demand-driven, more so from like mandates, police reform. You know, the government, there was some legislation for the body-worn cameras. We had to employ more non-sworn for that. So I think, you know, we will maintain this. We were going to do our part and help out in this financial, you know, crisis. But we're hoping that we only have to manage this for the short term for next year, and you know, and keep our core services for the community.
If I could just add to Alderman Barrero, I think your question as it relates to what do we tell the citizens, right? For those of us that have been around Aurora for our whole life, I can say personally I've been here since 1972. Been working in this capacity with the police department for almost 30 years. Those of us that have been around Aurora forever, essentially, and I know a lot of you have as well, we remember what crime was like, right? We showed a few stats that went back to 2014, but if we were to go even further back, it was much uglier, right? We remember the days of almost 30 homicides, nearly 400 people getting hit by bullets every year. To get to a point where we were last year with one domestic-related homicide, which, by the way, that murderer was just convicted this week, and only 7 people struck by bullets last year. That's not something that the Aurora Police Department is willing to reverse, no matter what financial condition we're in. And I think the way that we get through this is by the extreme dedication and hard work of all of our police officers and our non-sworn professional staff. No matter what we're faced with, we know that we've got the men and the women under our roof to do everything that they can do to keep crime where it is, and that's at historic lows. And unfortunately, that does take support, right? It takes your support, it takes the support of the city as a whole, and it takes finances. So hopefully next year the city's in a different financial place, and we can resume the same quality of public safety that we've been providing to Aurora for decades.
So out of everything, is there anything in particular that you would be concerned about? I mean, it sounds like you guys are ready to weather the storm, but is there any particular thing that might be a concern more than any other thing?
I think the, you know, the positions at the police department, you know, all of them have value and they're all incredibly important. I mean, the sworn officer position obviously is the most critical for us. It takes the longest time to recruit, hire, train. It has the highest turnover, right? Sometimes officers don't make it through training. We have officers retire every year. It costs the most to train them. And then when they're trained up, you know, they have a lot of value because they can go in many different directions within the police department. So, you know, anytime we're losing sworn officers, that's our core mission, public safety and services. So they are directly related to our core mission. So, I mean, that's a concern. But again, I think, you know, if we're able to sustain this temporarily just this year, that's something that we've you know, committed to doing.
No further questions at this time.
I was going to bounce off that question from Alderman Barrero. On page 638, on your E11 center, to E911 center, telecommunications operator 1, that's a reduction of 8 positions. When I first came in, telecommunications operators were a challenge 13 years ago. What would that mean for telecommunications going back, because I'm also preaching to my community, besides 311, what we've learned also in these community meetings is 256, 5,000, non-emergency as well. So what does that mean? I mean, that's a high-stress job, right? Are we putting more strain on our telecommunication operators at this point? Are we going to be expecting more of them as well?
So,
Are they gonna be left?
well, like the Deputy Chief mentioned, we have some challenges with just filling the 33 spots. I think you just mentioned 13 years ago, you were aware of this challenge, staffing it. It hasn't been fully staffed for at least that long, right, over a decade. I think the challenge is you touched on, it's an extremely difficult job. It's high stress, and it's very difficult. To get through the training is not easy. We're very lucky, fortunate to have the trained professional staff in our dispatch center, but it takes a lot of time through recruitment, the hiring, and then the training process. Unfortunately, there's limits with our training. We can only really train 3 or 4 at a time because of the way that the stations work in the training. So right now, I think we're sitting at 21 dispatchers.
Yeah, I can put some numbers behind it. I think will help add clarity to that. We're currently at 22 dispatchers out of the 33 allotted. So out of those 22, that includes 2 in training currently. So we don't know what the fate of those trainees will be. Hopefully they make it. But really, we have 20 working dispatcher positions filled right now. Out of those 20, 1 has been off due to an unfortunate car accident, and I believe she's filed for disability. So that would take us down to 19. And this is kind of a dark cloud, but there's a serious OPS case pending on another one. So there is a real possibility that we could be at 18 dispatchers, 18 to 20 dispatchers in the near future. Those are numbers that we've run with in the past, but that would essentially require us to hire and get 7 dispatchers successfully through training in 2026 to still be at 25, which would account for those 8 decremented vacancies. I don't know that we've had a year where we've gotten 7 dispatchers successfully through training and working the board in a year since I've been here. Okay. So there's a good cushion there with eliminating those vacancies for 1 year, again, which is our hope, in order to hire 7 dispatchers to still get us to 25, which is our allotted strength in dispatch given this decrement.
All right. Alderman Franco.
So I don't know where to begin here. Let's go to the cadets. I was part of the FAA when the strike happened in 81. I came in 82. In the 1990s, we didn't hire anybody because we thought we were good. That hole is still with us today. So as the cadet thing, it's kind of scary that we go 1 year or even 2 years because you will never catch up. The longer you go, you won't catch up. So, and as you guys know, you've never had the staffing you want because of whatever, the retirements, the whole thing. A person retires today, they're not ready. Don't bring a cadet in the right amount. So this is a scary thing going forward. And I'm hoping that this budget rectifies itself going forward because we're going to have that hole forever. I also want to say that, and I'm scattered. I'm sorry, I got all these different notes here. The job that you guys have done is outstanding. And I just want everybody to know that the sentiment that we heard in here the last week about the police department does not reflect the majority of the people in Aurora. You guys are doing a fantastic job. The numbers show it. My constituents come up to me all the time, public safety, they're wonderful. So I just want you guys to know that. We understand there's always a few people out there, but I just want you to know that that's not the norm. So with this reduced staffing, some of these performance measures, they went down, I guess, from this year. Is that because of the staffing? Because we can't do as much?
No, I think, so the performance measures, as our analyst comes up with those performance measures, that's just a numerical forecasting formula that they use. They don't take a lot of the environmental factors into it. Again, I think you touched on it just briefly a minute ago about the dedication and commitment of our officers and our non-sworn support staff. We can be rest assured that they are going to be just as equally committed and dedicated next year. So I don't think you're going to see those performance measures decrease. The way that it's forecasted in the budget narrative is all based off of that numerical forecasting formula. I appreciate what you said about our officers because it is hard for them to hear that. When we come in here and present on different things, we see how much the community appreciates us. Our officers live in this community. A lot of times it's lost that our officers are human as well. They're very professional, so you may not see it.
Well deserved. I mean, the numbers bear it out. So let's talk about the overtime. Again, I know when our staffing at public safety was low, overtime was increased. This has to be. As you see right now, the air traffic controls nationwide are mandatory overtime. If we're cutting staffing, can we really cut our overtime budget? I mean, because if we're going to continue to provide the service we are, and I'm going to guess from the 90s to today, the crime rate has gone down because of numbers in addition to other things, technology and better training. So I don't see how we can keep that up without using overtime because you got to be on the street, right? I mean, so I'm just trying to figure out how that reduction would parallel reduction of people. It would almost be like the opposite.
Yeah, I can touch on that briefly. Again, like many of our cuts, it's not our position that any of this is sustainable, right? This is a sacrifice that we think we can make for next year. Again, with the overtime, a lot of that is tied right to the training decrements, which again is not ideal either, and we don't want to sustain that beyond next year. But for instance, sending our entire police department prior to 2026, 336 members through mandatory training at 8 hours of overtime per session is a hefty price tag, right? So if we're only doing one mandatory training session, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings and overtime right there. A lot of our overtime is unavoidable, right? We're going to have late calls. We're going to have things that happen. You know, public demonstrations, for instance, those carry a price tag with them. The more those happen, the more money the city's going to spend. Court time, for instance, our officers obviously go to court. There's contractual items there. They get paid X amount of overtime. There's nothing we can do about that. Special events. If special events in the city decrease next year, less police officers will have to be hired for special events. If we're going to have more events at Rivers Edge Park, for instance, then that's going to be a bit of a quagmire, right? Those are all things we're going to have to try to navigate. The work group trainings, not that they were ever not necessary or extravagant, but for 1 year, again, we feel like we can take some of these cuts to training and overtime, but it's not something beyond 2026 that we're going to be able to absorb because, you know, lesser trained police officers is going to cost the city a lot more money in other categories.
And one more comment I want to make, or kind of a question. My residents were thrilled we had this traffic group out there, you know, looking for traffic stops, like special unit, because the number one complaint I get, I think a lot of aldermen do it, is traffic. It's just not stopping at stoplights, stop signs, and speeding and stuff like that. So that was wonderful. And this is going to be kind of take a hit on this too, because that was a wonderful, it still is a wonderful program.
So one of the positions that we had to decrement was the executive secretary that is in that unit. She took a lot of the administrative work off of the traffic officer's plate to allow them to go out there and be proactive with those details and responsive to some of the complaints that we receive. So, you know, we're going to have to get creative with, you know, some of those details. You know, we have other units, our officers are out there, but, you know, their main priority is responding to calls for service. You know, when somebody calls 911, I got to have somebody go answer that call. So, you know, there may be a decrease in some of those proactive details, but yeah, it's a challenge, like the deputy chief said, where we'll do what we can next year, and then hopefully we're in a better position in 2027.
And just to piggyback that, Alderman Franco, traffic stops obviously important. It's traffic safety, but it also leads to a lot of other things. The chief mentioned that traffic stops this year are up 17.5%, but to put some numbers behind that, that's and this is from the end of October, so it's even more now, but that's a little over 21,000 traffic stops that our officers have made this year, as opposed to just under 18,000 all of last year. Wow. So that's a motivated workforce, right? That's a workforce that feels supported. That's a well-trained workforce. Obviously, training equates to morale, equates to motivation, and obviously the most important thing is they're out there doing traffic stops safely and like they should be doing. So again, the trick is going to be to keep that motivated workforce, right? To keep them feeling like they're supported and to keep them motivated to be out there and making those traffic stops. And our officers understand that they work for the citizens of the city, and they are fully committed to keeping those citizens safe in all regards, whether it's on the roadways or in their homes.
All right, thank you. That's all. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Alderman Bug.
Thank you. First, I want to say, Chief, thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. You covered a lot of information. You know, everyone understands how important our police department is to our city. Crucial. You've done an excellent job. And even in coming to this year, we come in kind of at a crossroads in a special situation. We have things like, coming out of COVID, we were very thankful that we were able to deliver to the police officers a number of different, a lot of equipment, a lot of different things through the ARPA funds. And we were happy to do it. And, you know, we continue to have to maintain the things that we brought on board. However, ARPA funds are no longer there. So you have to adjust and keep going with, when you talked about things like technology and those other things, we need to keep going forward to have the best police force we can. And Dr. Caputo has talked about that we need to, better meet our needs of the pension obligation. Our officers work very, very hard. And, you know, the aldermen more so have the opportunity to meet with the top officers and those who have been around 20, 25, even 30 years. And those men and women have worked very hard during their careers. And of course, we want them to have a fully, not only a fully funded pension, but we don't want them to have to worry about anything when it's their time to step aside. And we thank them for their service. So you kind of have those things coming together. And I appreciate the steps that the police department has taken, the way they laid it out there today, that this is a short-term stopgap measure. We need to back off on some things, be able to do about 95% of it through attrition, and not eliminating directly a person, but a position. And even with the cadet program, that we will kind of step back from it some, but those people are still in the cadet program, and as we take a look at the budget next year, to be able to bring it funded at that level or bring it back even higher, that is definitely the goal. So Really, it takes everybody working together, not only the chief and the deputy chief and the lieutenants, but of course the rank and file, the union members, and it is so important. And we thank you for the measures that you've taken, and we are going to work very hard and looking at revenue streams in the future and bringing some things back. Only one question I had, really, we've done this in the past. I want to see if there's any more things in line for the future as far as training. And we talked about that we're going to, put some hold on some trainings, cut back, not totally eliminate, but cut back on some trainings. In the past, we were able to get that large grant through the federal government. It was a joint operation. Some of the older aldermen might recall, between Naperville and Aurora. We did a very large training, usually only for large cities, and thus we had to, Naperville and Aurora had to combine to have the population to qualify. And that training, I remember we did a number of years ago, was excellent, all-encompassing for both Aurora and Naperville. So I just want to see if there are any other opportunities like that at this time, any that we have applied for, or are there any in line as far as the state or federal government?
Let me just speak first. You mentioned about the layoffs, and this whole process was very stressful. I 35 positions. I don't want to lose anyone from our team. We are going to have to lay somebody off, but I think that it's important to understand, that represents a real person, real family. Individuals who depends on the job, for insurance stability. But I understand, as a mayor or as a manager, I have the responsibility to work with the city to put us in a stronger financial position. So I don't want it just to be lost that we did have to lay somebody off, and that's very unsettling because I don't want to lose anyone from our team. Speaking to the training, a lot of the grants are pass through. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I can speak to a couple of the things you mentioned, Alderman Bug. First of all, thank you for the kind words. It's definitely not lost on us. I do want to just clarify one thing with the ARPA funds. The major big ticket item that was purchased for the police department with ARPA funds were our body-worn cameras, and that was to the tune of roughly $1 million. That was a mandate, right? The city had to do that regardless. There was no choice, so it wasn't a matter of spending ARPA funds then or now. If they hadn't spent ARPA funds then, they would have had to spend city funds to purchase body-worn cameras for our officers. And in addition to that, which goes in lines with your grant question, we also secured, I believe, around a $900,000 grant that reimbursed the city for those body-worn cameras. So we try to pursue every grant funding that we can and be as fiscally responsible as possible with taxpayer money. We do have a grant writer in-house in addition to the city's grant writer. She pursues all grants that she can. I'm sure you're all aware right now it's a little difficult with the federal government versus Illinois, we'll call it. Some of those federal grants are not available to us. We can't even apply. And that's for political reasons. Hopefully that changes in the future, but we will continue to pursue every grant funding opportunity that we can for training and for everything else. I think you were referring to the Complex Coordinated Terrorist Attack grant that we did with Naperville, the CCTA grant. That was a 3-year project that it did afford a lot of not just police department employees, but a lot of city employees. I know EMA was heavily involved, the fire department was involved, and a lot of great training came out of that. That was a federal grant, I believe, and that's one of those things that we wouldn't even be able to apply for right now.
Chairman, I'm sorry, Alderman Buggs finished a couple of points I thought I might want to bring out.
Dr. Caputo?
Brian Caputo, Director of Operations Management. A couple of things I think might be a bit lost here. Even with the curtailment of the cadet program, Chief, aren't we still going to be maintaining lists of police officers to hire and testing and so on and so forth? It's not like we're going to never hire another police officer. Right?
Yeah, we have the lateral program that was passed a few years ago that was negotiated in the CBA. So that's been a helpful pipeline. And then we do have the new hire list. I think the cadets' value is, obviously the not only the hiring pipeline, but they supplement our officers a lot of times at the at a lot of events. They role play in our training as well. So very, very helpful for that too. So yes, but we do have other hiring pipelines.
If I could just add to, I think to Alderman Franco's point, our cadets are hugely successful once we do bring them on as police officers. Several actually have made it to the rank of police chief and several ranks below. And even at the officer rank, some of our best police officers were cadets. I think one of them, 2 of them are right there actually, former police cadets, Detective Moore and Lieutenant Hernandez. We do have a higher washout rate off of the eligibility list. Lateral officers are a lot more successful, right? They're already police officers, they're trained, they've decided that this is their career. That we have seen challenges already because people that are applying for police officer jobs do pay attention to what goes on at the local government level. We've seen other departments already trying to poach our officers. Luckily, we've only lost one of them so far to another agency, but that's something that we, as police management, definitely want to make our officers and our non-sworn professional staff feel as valued as they truly are so that we don't lose them to other departments.
One other point about training is I understand that we had a bit of a cycling of this mandatory training coming through, where this year we kind of benefited from a lot of mandatory training getting done next year, and this year, and next year's a bit of a lighter load?
Yeah, so what Dr. Caputo is referring to there is basically with the state mandates, right? We have certain mandates that are annual, certain that are every 3 years. Through our mandatory training schedule, and again, this is something that has been around as long as I've been here, we have 6 mandatory training sessions per year. That's not just to satisfy mandates, but as it benefited us right now, in 2025, we were able to satisfy a lot of those reoccurring mandates through our mandatory training schedule, so that next year, our sole mandatory training session will satisfy all the additional mandates that we're required to satisfy. Now, those other 5 training sessions are still very valuable, right? There's other things that we do that aren't mandates, whether it's officer safety, whether it's de-escalation, whether it's cultural diversity, other things that maybe a mandate's already been satisfied. We'll just have to forego for another year and then pick it up in 2027, hopefully. We're also, as a Band-Aid measure, going to incorporate more in-service training. We don't want our training to suffer because of finances. So if that means, much like one of our SRT sergeants just accomplished for our entire police department, if a property becomes vacant, he was doing some training in Eastwood where we did room clearing and room entries with our police officers. He was able to pull in 5 or 6 guys or girls as they were working if they weren't on calls and run them through some scenarios for 20 minutes, right? That's better than nothing. So we're going to have to find creative ways to bridge that training gap next year. We feel that we're one of the best trained police departments in the country, and we're not willing to reverse that reputation.
That's also what attracts a lot of people to come here, is because of our training and the support that we get so that we can have that training. So we don't want to lose that recruitment pipeline either. So.
Alderman Bug?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that concludes my question.
Okay, well, I'd like to just, again, interject and maybe piggyback on what Carl Franco said, Alderman Carl Franco, and then also, more importantly, what the sentiments of Alderman Ed Bug as well. We do get a front row seat to how you operate and how you work within our community and you work with the aldermen. That's definitely for sure. But it doesn't mean our community doesn't see what you do also. They've gotten to see your level of camaraderie, your culture of support for each other, first and foremost with the unfortunate tragedy of Pratt, and how you guys support each other, got each other's backs, your commitment to safety, but also, I would say, with the George Floyd era downtown, with the looting and the disruption of our businesses and our properties in that episode, I would say that, especially what you had to endure, your officers on site had to endure, the community can't say they don't see it well. So, yeah, we do get a front row. We do get an opportunity to ride around, or you provide us an opportunity to ride along with you. My wife refuses to let me do it again, based on my personal experience. But before I turn it over to my colleagues here that are not on the committee, the alder persons as well, we do have a fair amount of police officers here from the top to bottom, and we also have a few beloved retirees too are here to show their support. But also, my wife's going to get real excited to find out that Officer Morris is here, one of our most endeared COP officers in the city of Aurora. So, but with that said, I am going to turn it over to the next person here at the dais, and that is Alderman Patty Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I'm going to start by, first of all, thanking the Aurora Police Department for being such an amazing department. I can't even find the words to describe you guys, because you guys are, I've lived in multiple different states and multiple different places, and I've never seen anything like this, perhaps because we have the front seat. But to go back to a little bit what Alderman Franco said about the community, last week I had one of my ward meetings that I have twice a year, 2 big ones a year. I had over 100 residents at that meeting. Now that's huge for aldermen. Many of them get 15 or 20 people. I always have very large ones because I only do it twice a year. Over 100 people. We go through the process, and at the end, I leave time for Q&A. That Q&A, 99% of that Q&A was to our officers. And it was just so productive in such a community gathering for them to be able to sit there and interact with the officers and ask them any questions. I had 20 high school kids, and the high school kids were asking the officer questions. We had the ICE thing going on. They were asking ICE questions. They were just so comfortable with you guys because that's how you guys are. You make everybody feel comfortable. So thank you for being there. Thank you for supporting our city. Thank you for me for supporting my ward that night. It meant a lot. But back to the budget part. This is, if not the highest item of importance, it's right up there side by side as the highest item of importance in our budget. I have tremendous concerns that were shared tonight. The loss of staff. We didn't get to be one of the top safest cities in America because we're short-staffed. We didn't get to 18% traffic stops higher from last year, or 36% more DUIs and 100% more gun seized, and all the other statistics because we've got less staff. We got it because we have more staff, because we have trained staff. And let's go to training. I remember when Pratt, I had just been brought on when Pratt came. I believe it was said over and over again, the outcome of Pratt could have been worse. It was terrible, but it could have been worse. And it was because of the training that our officers had, because you guys knew how to execute the process. The same with the unrest. So when we talk about, we had too much training this year, maybe we can have less next year. I don't agree with that. I agree that the more you're trained, the more you're ready for these crises, and crises are happening. So I do have concerns. I'm very happy to see that we went from 70 officers magically to 50 officers, or excuse me, less staff, and now 35. As soon as this went out, Naperville's police department was looking for officers. They are poaching you guys, or trying to poach you guys like crazy. So this budget process, as we sit here now, we are where we are. But in the end, in the next couple of weeks, if things can be adjusted and changed, this is my priority where the adjustments and changes need to go. And it's certainly not down, it will be up. So I support you guys. I believe everyone in this room supports you guys, but I also think that we can do a little bit better up here for you guys this coming year. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And like we said before, I think, the officers, it is about, training in the numbers, but it's about the engagement of the officers and the appreciation of the officers from people like you and everyone else up here, and people in the community. I think when they feel appreciated and valued, they're engaged, they're committed to the community, they're dedicated to the community. Many of the officers, like myself, live in the community. We have families in the community. So we have our own investment in the safety of the community because we live here and shop here. And, and I think that it's important that you say those words and that they hear them. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Good. All right. Well, with that said, I'm going to go to the other side of the dais. Alderman Schweda-Bade.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to echo the same sentiments as other aldermen. Thank you to Chief and Deputy Chief and the entire APD. We feel very safe because of you, and thank you for keeping all the residents of Aurora safe. So even at my meetings, I think most of the residents who come to my meeting are senior citizens. I do have some students sometimes, but most of them are senior citizens, and they are there because APD officers will be there to answer questions. Sometimes they're not comfortable making a phone call because they think they are traceable through their phones. So they just want your presence, and they just want to get the answers directly from you. And at my last meeting too, some of the residents mentioned that, I'll say, Officer Piscopo, he's my friend. He's like my son. He's same for Officer Rappa and Officer Bani. So they have built the relations with the community, they're very reachable. So that is why we are very happy and very thankful for keeping us, for your services and for keeping us safe. So I wanted to start with that. And most of my questions were already answered, but I did also want to mention about the school resource officer negotiation with IPSD 204. That's a very good idea. Yes. I think because of people parking in wrong neighborhoods just to go to the school or drop their kids. I think this is what the officers do. Officer Bani helps me with that all the time. So if we can talk to IPSD 204, that will be great. Cadet program was also a big concern. I don't know if we can apply for any local grants from state or from county to not make it slow, or some aldermen can pitch in and keep it at same level as
absolutely.
It is current.
Mrs. Stagner is our grant writer in-house, and she's sharp as a tack, so I can assure you she's pursuing every funding available out there, and we can work with Dr. Caputo to put that to correct use. So cadet program would be one of them.
But we're not going to turn down Alderman Ward funds if you want to, if you're offering.
Yes, we are there to support.
Right.
Yes. And I saw a decrement for Explorer program. So can you please go over that a little bit?
Sure. So our Explorer program is relatively new within the last year or two. And really what that did is we saw a need to kind of bridge the gap between our youth academy, which we run every summer through our COP officers, our youth academy, and our cadet program. So we were getting good interest in our youth academy, and then we weren't at the time getting a lot of applications for our cadet program. So the Explorer program kind of fills that gap there to keep people that may have gone through the youth academy. They'll have a venue then to stay engaged with the police department, and then hopefully proceed into cadets, and then into police officers, and maybe the chief of police one day, like Alderman Barrero said. It also is a huge community outreach tool. It's very important, like our school resource officers, not just to be there for a safety function or a law enforcement function, but to build these relationships with these children, right? A lot of times, by the time people are in their 20s or 30s, they already have their opinion of police. We've heard a lot of those opinions recently in this very chamber. But if we can build those relationships with young men and women in our community and let them know who we really are, and hopefully then increase their interest in becoming a police officer themselves, that's kind of what we saw the need for our Explorer program. It's unfortunate that we were forced, like every other department in the city, to proceed with this exercise of 20% decrements. And when we did that, we had, not that all 20% was taken, but we had to prioritize things. It just comes down to that. We had to prioritize things, and unfortunately the Explorer program was one of those things that was lost. Again, I just want to reiterate that it's our contention that when the city gets in a better financial position, that we fight for all of these things to get back.
So it is kind of eliminated for next year?
Yes.
And you're saving $55,000 by eliminating that?
Is it totally eliminated? It is totally
Yes.
eliminated, yes.
And it may come back in 2027 based on
That'll be part of the budget process for next year, right?
Okay. And with the decrement and reduction, how will it impact the COP officers' presence at various events? Not just party events, just
Of the
like,
Explorer program?
like school program or something, yeah. Sorry, this is the next question for like
The COP as a whole?
reduction in personnel.
Yeah.
COP officers, is the number reduced
So
or?
our COP unit, when we were early on in the budget process and looking at 20 police officer layoffs initially, active police officer layoffs, not vacancies, I can tell you that COP was going to be reduced. Where we were able to get to today, we don't have any current plans to reduce our COP unit, so I see no reason why they should ever not attend your events, your meetings. It's very important. As Alderwoman Patty Smith just said, we know the value of having them out there. Why wouldn't you want your COP officers out interacting with the community at your ward meetings?
And another thing, I didn't see anything in the budget for any pending mandates, like body-worn cameras. Are there any other mandates that we still have to fulfill?
No, not at this time. I think the new laws they typically come out in the next month, whatever comes out for January, but we usually have a pretty good heads up from ILACP, and there's nothing that's coming out next year that we're aware of.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you once again. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for keeping us
Appreciate it.
safe. Thank you.
Okay, no further questions, Alderman Bade? Okay. With that said, I would say that you can anticipate that this, based on what's been said here, the sentiment and tone by some of my colleagues here at the dais, this conversation hasn't ended in regards to the police, but I hope you stick around a little bit because we have one